Michelle Dean, this is Jessica Suhrheinrich and Laura J. Hall. Thank you for viewing our presentation. Our presentation is entitled Increasing Access to Evidence-Based Practice for All Students with Autism Spectrum Disorder. We developed inquiry questions in preparation for this presentation. How can Captain resources be used to support general educators who instruct students with autism in their classrooms? What evidence-based and universal design for learning strategies presented in this presentation will be beneficial to incorporate into your program?
The first point we want to make is that there's been a steady increase in the prevalence of individuals identified with autism spectrum disorder. And what you see in this chart is from the California Department of Education. We can see the steady increase in numbers of students from 2010 to 2019. 60% of the students that get identified with autism spectrum disorder do not have an intellectual disability. So they are more likely to be educated in general ed with their peers. They may have some challenges that need support in areas of social skills or reading comprehension, but they also may excel beyond their peers in content areas such as mathematics, music, engineering, and numerous other subject matter content. We also know that there is not a difference in the identification of individuals with autism based on race or ethnicity. So we would expect the student body to match the prevalence rates within each community. We do see nationally, though, that there are disparities in the services that are offered and delivered to students who are Hispanic, Latinx, and Black, who are under-identified for services compared with white students. Also, there's a disproportionate amount of students receiving services from low-income communities. And Latinx parents of individuals with autism report higher unmet service needs and express concern about services in receiving services in their native language. When we look at the California data, we see that there is a difference, that the students identified as Black are actually overrepresented compared to the population in California by 2%. But the Hispanic community is underrepresented. And this has implications for students who may be in school programs that may not have received the benefit of early intervention because they were not identified, or have not received other services that would support their educational progress. Because of the high prevalence, it is highly likely that all teachers will be asked to instruct students with autism. And in California, if you're getting a credential in special ed or becoming an education specialist, then standards specific to autism are embedded in pre-service training. However, this is not the case for credentialed teachers getting their multiple and single subject credentials. These general ed teachers, however, are required to meet the TPEs, or teaching performance expectations, that address all students. In other words, for TPE 1, they are to support all students and engage all students and use principles of universal design for learning and multi-tiered systems of support. For TPE 3, understanding and organizing subject matter, they are to adapt curriculum, to organize and to plan their curriculum and activities for all students in the least restrictive environment, and this is often the general ed classroom. For TPE 4, they plan instructions and design learning experiences to maximize the potential of all students. Also for TPE 4, they are to learn to access resources for planning instruction, including getting resources from the community. And we are here to present one of those resources in detail, and that is, ta-da, the Captain website.
I'll tell you a bit more about CAPTAIN. The acronym stands for the California Autism Professional Training and Information Network. This is a statewide training and technical assistance network with a focus on evidence-based practice or supported practices for individuals impacted by autism. And it's inclusive of stakeholder agencies with the goal of disseminating information at a local level. There are key goals that are part of the CAPTAIN mission. One is to increase knowledge about autism and EBPs through systematic dissemination of information, so increasing knowledge. 2 is to increase implementation and fidelity of evidence-based practices in schools and other community programs. So this is increasing use of evidence-based practice. And 3rd, increasing interagency collaboration to leverage resources and standardize a process for using evidence-based practices. I'm going to share with you some of the resources available through CAPTAIN by doing a walk through the CAPTAIN website. So we'll go to some basic links on the homepage, and then we'll also be looking at a Padlet that's been specifically designed to address needs that have come up with regard to COVID-19 and distance instruction. So if you follow the link to the CAPTAIN website, you will see along the right side resources that link to other national agencies or organizations that are supporting individuals with autism and provide professional learning opportunities. One, the National Professional Development Center on ASD provides both information and specific learning modules. So if you go to the AFFIRM site, which stands for Autism Focused Intervention Resources and Modules, you can create a free account and complete professional learning opportunities. We found this to be a great assignment for students completing some of our practicum programs, and the modules can generate a certificate as evidence of completion of their work. If you scroll through this, you'll see each of the evidence-based practices for autism are identified and have accompanying resources. Back to the CAPTAIN website, if you scroll down a bit further to the CAPTAIN resources page, you can find a matrix or a table that outlines each of the evidence-based practices here along the left side, along with specific age groups for which that practice has research support and specific goal domains. So the areas that were targeted for learning and proved to be effective with that specific practice. So this is a nice resource for selecting practices and tailoring those to the population or student group that you're working with. I'd also like to show you these autism fact sheets. This gives an overview of autism for someone who's not very familiar with the criteria for diagnosis of autism, some of the accompanying needs, and basic resources. One of the really special things about these fact sheets is that they're available in many different languages. So you can see here in the English fact sheet, there's an overview of signs and symptoms, treatment, causes and risk factors, and additional resources. However, if we go back to the main page and go to other languages, you'll see that the same information is available in a variety of languages. So these are a great resource for your candidates, other providers that you're training or working with to share with or other community members who are not English speaking or who are more comfortable learning in a different language. Finally, I'll take you back up to the top of the home page, and I want to highlight these Padlets. So these were developed in response specifically to the distance learning initiatives that are in place right now in California. And specifically, I want you to see these resources for educators to support distance learning. There's some guidance documents. There are specific tools, including video examples of how to use evidence-based practices. I think you'll find this really helpful to peruse and also share with your students. And with that, I will hand it off to Michelle.
So other Captain resources available are professional development opportunities. We have over 400 Captain cadre across the state of California, and in an effort to disseminate best practices, we like to provide training and support. So one way we did that is our most recent effort, which was to disseminate knowledge about autism and evidence-based practices into higher education and teacher practicum courses. One university and district partnership reached out to Captain and requested a professional development about autism and evidence-based practices for university mentor teachers who are working with pre-service teachers in their clinical placement classrooms, and induction mentor teachers who are working with first or second year teachers in their beginning stages of their profession as a teacher. So this district is representative of many places in California. It's economically and ethnically diverse. There's a large proportion of English language learners, and in this district there's 2,300 students with autism. So the purpose of this professional development was designed for these mentor teachers to conceptualize the implementation of evidence-based practices within diverse clinical practicum settings. So we initially were planning to meet face-to-face, but due to the stay-home order, we worked with the district and the university, and we created an asynchronous online learning module about evidence-based practices for students with autism. We first wanted mentor teachers to walk away with knowledge about the specific evidence-based practices for individuals with autism. And then we wanted to think that the mentor teachers to think about how they can use this information to support beginning teachers in their initial years of teaching and to develop a foundation for their profession as a teacher. Then we also wanted the teachers to think about how they could use Captain resources to support the students with autism who are currently in their classes, in their classrooms. So we moved the mentor teachers or their participants through a series of activities. First, we provided a general overview about autism and Captain and evidence-based practices. We then introduced the most popular or most widely used evidence-based practices, and then we took them through the resources or the matrix that Jessica showed you earlier. And with each one of these activities, we provided a question prompt. So the first question prompt, we simply asked mentor teachers to think about how they could use these Captain resources to support the beginning teacher that they're working with. So a couple of these representative responses were they can use Captain, this emphasis on evidence-based practices, to really cultivate a vision of high standards that can start from pre-service teachers and beginning teachers, and really so they can focus on that for the rest of their career. As a team, the mentor teacher and the teacher candidate or the beginning teacher would review the strategies and ideas and talk with each other and think about how they could use these practices to support the students in their classroom. And they would talk about how these strategies could be used with many students, and then also how to individualize for each student's unique needs. Our next prompt, we wanted the mentor teachers to focus in more on thinking about the developmental trajectory of a beginning teacher. So perhaps there are some evidence-based practices that may be more feasible in your first semester of student teaching compared to your first year of beginning teaching. So the mentor teachers suggested that they would use these most prevalent evidence-based practices as a starting point to develop consistency of using evidence-based practices and evidence-based strategies in the classroom. Then they would talk about how they could use these widely used evidence-based strategies, but to individualize supports for each student with autism in their class. And they were also using these strategies to emphasize the importance of research and evidence-based practices. Finally, when looking across the matrix, the teachers considered their own classroom and the students with autism in their own class. And in doing so, they're thinking about the unique needs of the child, the age, the setting where they're working with children, and they reviewed the matrix to think about what evidence-based practices are useful for the students that they're currently serving in their classroom. Visual supports, including daily schedules, were deemed as extremely important and useful in the classroom. Social narratives and peer-mediated interventions were also used and were considered especially helpful for students who are included in the general education setting for part or all of the school day. Behavior momentum, differentiated reinforcement, and task analysis are also behavioral strategies that were used regularly to support students with autism in their classroom. So we provided this overview of a professional development module that we created just to show you an example of an additional resource that Captain can provide. We could develop Canvas learning modules to support you, or we could do a professional development or a guest lecturer in a higher education class. Like I said earlier, there are over 400 Captain Cadre members who are available to provide support, and this includes this guest lecturing. If you would like to request additional resources or a guest lecturer to share about autism and evidence-based practices, please contact Captain at marinschools.org or myself, michelle.dean@csuci.edu. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch our presentation, and we hope to hear from you.